Hi everyone, Brybone here, back with another episode of the Weekly Purple Team. And this week, we are covering BadSuccessor. There's been a lot of talk in the industry about BadSuccessor. This one was very interesting. What this does is take advantage of a new feature in Server 2025 called delegated managed service accounts. Well, the way that they set this up, a delegated managed service account could be associated to anything. And the vulnerability lies in the fact that if you have control over an OU, you can target things that shouldn't be able to be targeted, right? So if you paid attention to BadSuccessor, or if you've had a look at the research and thought, that doesn't affect me, it's pretty nasty. And I'm going to show you how BadSuccessor works. We're going to do it the manual way, and then we're going to do it the easy way, right? Now just realize adversaries doing this is pretty unlikely given how it currently stands. They'd have to get Rubeus by your EDR to make this work because they need to be able to request tickets, albeit a good adversary that's not that hard to do. But also most of the commands are via PowerShell and the detection is fairly easy. And I'll show you the detection once we get to the end of this. So we're going to do this two ways. We're going to start with our Windows 11 host, and we're going to do this completely with PowerShell and Rubeus. And then we're going to use a tool by Logan Goins called SharpSuccessor to do this in a quicker, easier fashion. And then we'll do the detection of this. All right. So let's start with Win 11 host 1 here. And I have two command prompts open. And we're using Nathan Summers desktop right here. We've got some PowerShell going on this one. And then this is a standard elevated command prompt. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a machine account. But how do we know that Nathan Summers is a user we can do this with? Well, if you look at our OU structure here in group policy, you can see if I right click here and I go to properties for pwned, and I go to security, and then I choose this user, they have the create all child objects permission. Okay, this is all that's required. Once you have this, it is a complete domain takeover. And I don't mean just this OU, I mean the entire domain. And I'll show you why here in just a moment. But point being, they have a OU that they have been delegated some level of permission on. There's a lot of organizations that would have this. And just realize, once the delegated managed service account is created, you can run this from anywhere after that point, right? You don't have to be on Windows 11. You don't have to target Server 2025 at that point. So there is some risk in the way that this works. All right, so we've compromised Nathan Summers. He has the ability to write into an OU and create child objects. Well, let's abuse that. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to create a machine. And we're going to do new AD computer. And I'll just paste into PowerShell. And I'm going to do this step at a time and explain it because there's about 11 steps to make this work. It's not exactly straightforward. SharpSuccessor is much more straightforward, and I'll show you that. So first thing we do, we create a new computer account. I'm going to create an account called pwned machine, and I'm going to give it a password, right? And I'm going to get that plain text, and then I'm going to put that in the OU that I know I have access to, right? And I'm going to target a server that is Windows 2025. So here we go. And we have now created our machine. So if we come back over here to our domain and we refresh, you'll see the pwned machine account. Now I know the password of that account, so I can get the hash, and I need that for later steps. So that's what we're going to do first. We're going to now use Rubeus. So we'll do /. We're going to do Rubeus. We're going to give it the password of Hack the Planet, which we just set on this machine account. We're going to use the pwned machine user, and then we're going to give it the domain, and we're going to get our AES256 hash. So we need this for later steps, okay? So just realize we need this for a later step. You're going to put this somewhere, right? The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create the delegated managed service account. So we're going to create one called pwned dMSA. And you're going to use new AD service account. Now, one thing I forgot to mention, if you want all this to work, you have to have the RSAT tools in there, and you have to do import module Active Directory before any of this starts. So if I go import module active directory, just like that. You need that before you can do any of this stuff, right? Have to have the Active Directory module. You have to have the RSAT tools on the host you're using. Now, if you're in control of this Windows host, it's not hard to add that, right? Okay. So we'll clear our screen here, and then we're going to do our delegated managed service account addition. So we'll do new AD service account. We're going to give it a name, phone dMSA, our DNS name, our create delegated service account, our principals allowed to retrieve managed password, and then our phone machine. That's our machine that we created, and our OU. If you don't give it the OU, we'll assume that you need domain administrator, and it won't work. But if you give it the OU, it works. That's where this comes down to the business of, look, hey, it's not really fully verifying permissions. So if we do that, now it created our pwn dMSA because we have control over this OU. So we'll refresh that, and we have a dMSA that was created by this user. So if it's created by this user, we can add write permission to it, and then we can do things with it, right? So our delegated managed service account right here. So our next step, we now have to set permissions on our delegated managed service account that let the user that we're working from have access to it, right? If we take a look at it right now, if we go to properties, go to security, notice Nathan Summers has some limited permissions. He does not have write. Well, we need write. So if we have write, then we can do things with this. Without write, you can't really do very much with this. So to create write, we just simply do this. We're going to paste this in. And what we're doing is we're adding Nathan Summers to our dMSA. We're giving generic all, allow, and then we're doing our path, right? So we're just adding our ACL. So we do that, come back over here to our Win 2025 DC. Now we look at pwn dMSA, go to security. Notice we have everything we need now. Because we were the creator owner, we could do that. Our next step is now to set the managed service account in a method that we can allocate what we want it to attach to. So what we want it to attach to is an account in the Active Directory. Now, to make this clear, when we first look at, we'll go over here to ADSI edit, we'll do a refresh. In here, we see our dMSA. If we go to properties here, inside this account, there are two things we need. There is the, I'll find it here, msDS is set to a 0 first. msDS delegated MSA state, this needs to be set to a 2. If it's set to a 0, it hasn't migrated yet, is what that means. So it's not ready to use. In other words, it's not functional. And then we need to set our msDS-ManagedAccountPrecededByLink, and that's the account that we're linking it to. And let's see, msDS managed. It's not listed here, I don't think. Maybe not, but we'll add it, right? So once we add it, it'll show up here. Someone could do our set service account identity part. So now clear the screen one more time. We're going to set our identity. Now this is where we're attaching it to the administrator account for the domain. You can attach this to any account in the domain. That's what makes this so crazy. I can attach it to a domain admin. I'm not limited to what's in that OU. And then I'm doing the MS delegated MSA state. So we'll go ahead and we'll do that. That was successful. If we come back over here now to our DC and we refresh this, so we'll do a refresh. And then we go to properties. Now you will see our link set to 2 right there. And then our account right there. So now this is associated to the administrator account for the domain. Okay, I know this has been a lot, so I'm going to keep going, but I'll explain every step. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get our identity just to verify. Now I have access to the domain controller, so I don't need to do that. But in this case, if you want to verify that it all worked, you would do this. You would do get AD service account identity, the account, and then you want to get these two options. And we can see here's the account it's attached to, and it's set as a 2. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use what we got earlier from our AES hash, and we're going to request a ticket. So we'll go ahead, we'll grab our hash that we got from earlier. Bear with me here, I'm just pasting this into my command. We're going to ask for a TGT. So we're going to ask for a ticket granting ticket as the machine. Right? So we'll, sorry, paste problems there. Copy. We're going to use Rubeus. We're going to ask for a TGT of the pwn machine account. We have the hash. We're going to use the domain hacking lab, and then we're going to do no wrap. Okay. We're then going to take that into our next step, which is asking for the ticket account, right? So we'll do this, right? So we have our account as pwn machine. Now before we do this, let's do a dir. We'll do win 2025 DC. This is the domain controller, right? I don't have permission to do this. That's what it's telling me. But now, when I take this and I ask for a ticket for the delegated managed service account that I just basically created and own, it's going to give me that. So let's scroll down here. I'm going to clear the screen. Do this one more time. There is our hash from the previous one. We're asking for a target user of pwn dMSA, our KRB TGT, our dMSA switch here, which means you need a newer version of Rubeus. That was a recent commit. And then we do that. We now have one for our pwn dMSA. And so from there, we should be able to do our dir, and we now have access to the domain controller. So that is the long and hard way to do that. But it works. You can create a dynamic or a delegated managed service account, and you can take over the entire domain on Server 2025, their newest, most secure operating system, right? Now, that's the hard way. There's much easier ways. And so let's do this the easy way now. Logan Goins created a tool called SharpSuccessor, which I compiled over here. This does most of the functionality automatic for you. There are PowerShell scripts out there that will do this. Just realize most people are going to do this the way I just did it via PowerShell in some way. SharpSuccessor, it's another tool you have to get by EDR. It's an executable, but hey, you already got Rubeus by, so you should be able to get another .NET executable by, right? So let's clear our screen here. And we'll start with SharpSuccessor. So we're going to clear screen, and we're going to do a different managed service account for SharpSuccessor. So we'll start with SharpSuccessor, and here, do SharpSuccessor exe add. We're going to impersonate the administrator account. Well, here's our OU, and our account we're going to do this time, we're just going to do straight up Nathan Summers. We're not going to do the computer account dance. We're going to do attacker dMSA. And it created everything for me and weaponized the object. So most of those steps I just took are down to one. Now, we do need a administrator command shell for the next step. Here we're going to use Rubeus, and we're going to do a TGT deleg. So we do /Rubeus. Actually, not in PowerShell, so I don't need that. Rubeus. Then we're going to do TGT deleg, just like that. And then we're going to do no wrap. So that's going to give me my ticket, right? Now I'm going to ask for a service ticket for this. So I'm going to cut this out real quick. We'll do ask TGS. And we're going to do that in this window back as our user. I need to do Kayla's purge first, though, to make sure this all works. So all our tickets are deleted, so this is good. So now we're going to do Rubeus one more time over here. And this is our hash from here. And we now have our dMSA, like we saw earlier, right? Now we just take this ticket that just was generated, put that into our final command. And our final command, we're going to ask for SIFs for the domain controller with Rubeus. And then that's going to give us access to the domain controller via SIFs. So we'll just do this real quick. And there we go. We now have SIFs for Win 2025 DC. And we do dir Win 2025 DC $. There we go. Full access to the domain controller. So SharpSuccessor makes this a lot easier to do, right? So thank you, Logan, for making that tool. It's really cool. And it's C#, so it's pretty easy to obfuscate those kinds of programs, bring them into PowerShell, do a whole dance with them. So it's nice. Okay. That is the ridiculously complex red teaming of BadSuccessor. That is how you pull off BadSuccessor two different ways, right? SharpSuccessor way and the full PowerShell with Rubeus way. Now, for the blue team. For once, the blue team gets it easy. Why? A lot of this is PowerShell, right? PowerShell in most environments, pretty easy to detect. So we're going to basically start with looking for anything with create delegated service account. So if we come over here to our Elastic SIM, notice I now have Elastic 9 in the lab here. So we're going to start doing demos on Elastic 9. It's a bit faster, works a bit better. But we're going to look for event code 4104 and PowerShell file script block create delegated service account. Right? We had to create a delegated service account when we did the PowerShell way. So if we take a look here, we should have new AD service account, Pwn dMSA. Yeah, that's pretty obvious, right? If you see something like that, you know it's BadSuccessor. So this was the first thing I threw out on Twitter when I saw this, because the other detection of this, what they put in the BadSuccessor article, it's not sufficient in most environments. Most people aren't going to be rolling SACLs on different parts of their AD. It's just not going to happen. They were looking for 5137 events. Most people just don't have these coming into SIM. Most everybody has 4104, right? So you can see the PowerShell creation of these events, right? Okay, so our next one, we're going to look for the behavior of SharpSuccessor. So this would be the first way to tell if you had a delegated managed service account created in your environment. Easy win, right? They have to do this, and also they have to do principal allowed to retrieve. Most people aren't going to be using delegated managed service accounts yet. It's too new a feature. So use that to your advantage, blue team. The next one we're going to look for the behavior of SharpSuccessor. So we're going to use event code 4688 or 1 and the process arguments that we had to put in there. We had to put in the impersonate, we had to put in account, and we had to put in path, right? So we're looking for the arguments of that. We're not looking for the name, because SharpSuccessor could be named anything. But odds of it having impersonate, account, and path in the process args, pretty slim. So we'll search for this. And here we go. If we take a look here, we have our process executable. Notice this is SharpSuccessor. And we can see SharpSuccessor executable. And here is our name of our dMSA account. So that is the detection for SharpSuccessor, right? There was a lot to detect on the PowerShell piece, but the easiest method is to detect the creation of the dynamic service account, or the delegated managed service account. Then detect SharpSuccessor by its behavior. Don't look for the user for the executable name. An adversary can name it anything they want. They've got to compile it. Could be successor, could be p.exe, but the behavior will not change, right? You have to give it an impersonation account. You have to give it a path. You have to give it an account name. Now, a really sharp adversary could change all that. they're not going to, right? They just don't usually go that far. So, all right, our final detection, and this one actually is a good one, okay? This one was in the BadSuccessor article, so I'll give them credit for it. On this one, we're going to look for event code 2946 and win event log data param 2 being S157. This is the pulling of a password for the delegated managed service account. So if we look for this, we can see several of these, right? So here we go. If you look at it, it says a caller successfully fetched the password for a group managed service account. Not that common. And you can see that this correlates to the dMSAs that we created. So you can use this as a corollary. Now, the problem with this one, once again, this isn't a channel that most people collect. Right? It's not PowerShell. It's not security. It's not system. It's not applications. It is the Active Directory channel. So you may not have this coming into SIM. You probably should for your domain controllers. Right? You should have this channel coming in. Here is the channel. Microsoft Windows Active Directory Domain Service is the provider name, right? So this is the one you need to bring in to be able to detect this. Most of the detection in the BadSuccessor article, insufficient for most organizations. So pay attention to that. All right. We took a deep dive into BadSuccessor. Really cool research. This one is worthy of the buzz that the community has given it. So, fantastic. And that's it for this week. Thanks for watching, and hack the planet to defend better.